I want to now look at what is called, in psychology terms, codependency, which is where you are addicted to a person who is emotionally unavailable and who also possibly has their own addictions to alcohol and, say, drugs. And a lot of narcissistic and abusive types of people are like that. And what happens is we end up developing an unhealthy addiction towards them. And they encourage that, they foster that, maybe subliminally, but that's what happens. So that we grow dependent on them and we start to crave them like a drug. We need them. And the only one who can make us feel good about ourselves again is the person who is abusing us. And it's all part of the cycle of abuse. So it's really good to understand what is happening there. Firstly, a narcissistic type of person will love bomb you. They will absolutely come on to you with such an intensity that you will feel amazing. You know, they're charismatic, they can be wonderful, they can make you feel so special and so wanted. And often the type of person that they are attracted to is somebody who is quite low in self-esteem, lacking self-worth, and so loves to hear, you know, that they are the only person in the world for them. They've never loved anyone so much like this, like you before. You know, all these things they say to you that make you feel fantastic. And only once they really feel that they've hooked you in, do they do what is, I call, an emotional bait and switch. You'll start to see glimpses of a darker side to them. And it'll only be fleeting at first, so much so that you sort of think, did I imagine that? But you'll see enough of their darker side and their vulnerable side that they start to reveal to you, that you also start to feel the need to rescue them. That they need you to save them from this darker side. It's not really them. They've had a bad past. They've had, been treated badly by past girlfriends or boyfriends in the past. It's not them. You feel sorry for them. So you set about rescuing them and saving them from this darker side that you start to see that they've got. And you also start to believe possibly that you're to blame for some of it, because they start to tell you that, I was angry because you did this, or I did that because you did whatever. So you start to think, well, if I can change my behavior, then it won't happen again. So they start to see that you will accept the blame for their behavior, and what you do is you start to change yours in the hope that you won't get that side of them, and you can prove to them you're worthy of their love and that you can save them from that darker side. So you are then in this beginning of a dysfunctional sort of relationship. And what will start to happen is the glimpses of the dark side will get more and more, and you'll start to see the nice side less and less. But you will start to have, a flash of anger, or them storming off after accusing you of something and disappearing for days. Or they might give you a little push, a little show of physical violence. They'll start to use these manipulative tactics like setting rules for you, and if you don't live up to them, they punish you, and all this sort of stuff. And if you then start to question it or get upset, or they think you're going to start to walk away, then you get the remorseful, loving, gorgeous side hooking you back in again. So what that does to you is it starts to chip away little by little at your self-esteem, and it starts to make you feel that you are to blame for that behavior, and also that you start to crave the nice side of them again. It's a little bit like a drug. They start metering out the doses of that nice side of them. and you start to get this craving. You want that high again. You want to feel special again, wanted again. You want to feel loved again. And remember, if you are somebody with low self-esteem, that feels so important to you. So you start to develop this craving for them, you start to develop this addiction for them, and you start to excuse their behavior, accept the blame for their behavior, and you then start to go out of your way to change your behavior in order to try and rescue them and fix them, because you think you can see this damaged person inside and you think they're trapped inside this charismatic one, and you're just forever craving and going on a futile search to get that loving person back. But what happens is the lows start to get lower and lower. The manipulation gets worse. You might see an escalation of physical violence, and you might get threats, and you know, if I can't have you, no one can, and things get worse and worse and worse, because the cycle of abuse is one that goes round, but it does get worse and worse and worse, and the highs will get fewer and further between. And the more this happens, the more your self-esteem is starting to be crushed, and the more you will just desperately crave that loving side to come back. And like an addict, when they withdraw that love, when you withdraw from the drug of them, it hurts. It hurts so badly. You'll do anything to get them back again. If they say you're to blame and you've got to change your behavior and do whatever, you will do it because you want that love back again. And like an addict, you also crave and need the very person who is abusing you and hurting you, because they are the only thing that can make you feel good about yourself again. So as you can see, you know, the cycle of abuse is an unhealthy addiction that we develop for them. And it sort of begins because we are lacking self-esteem and self-worth. And they, as narcissistic types, need someone like that who's ripe to be manipulated and who they can control. And they do that because deep down they're also insecure and lacking self-esteem. And they've got to control people around them because they don't want anyone to leave them, because that will then tell them that they are the weak person that they don't want to be, because they have an inflated sense of ego and entitlement, as narcissists do. So in a weird way, our insecure baggage matches theirs, and we go into this dysfunctional dance, if you like. Ironically, somebody like them, a narcissist, who is incapable of fulfilling anybody else's needs but their own, because that's all that matters to them, nobody else, is never going to be capable of fulfilling our emotional needs. So this search that we go on, this desperate craving for them, is a futile one, just like it is with an addict addicted to heroin. It is only going to ever be destructive and hurt us. So really be clear on whether your addiction, whether your relationship and your love for a narcissistic person is really a healthy type of love, or whether it is an unhealthy addiction to somebody who is never going to meet your emotional needs because they're emotionally unavailable to do so. It's a really important distinction. It's not about love, that's about control, and it's about unhealthy, negative patterns of behavior where both of you get sucked into this destructive cycle that's no good for either of you and will only damage your self-esteem.